Hello there.
And welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, Gungans, droids, of course, how can you forget about the Hati Mondicones? Creepy looking pliggies, people lurking in the shadows, whatever you may be. Welcome to today's video. Thank you for stopping by among my humble video gaming realm, where today we are updating our All Zetas guide from best to worst in Star Wars Galaxies. Let me tell you, people, you can leave your comment down below how many Zetas you think there are. There are a ton of Zetas in this game that we've added, and just in totality in this game, wow, that number, whoo, those numbers are rising. It's that time of year, people. We have a lot of stuff that we got to be updating on this spreadsheet. We're going to start off with our Zeta conversation. As you can see, we're already adding a new tier, moving some stuff around, more or less kind of a new spreadsheet compared to the last time we made this video back in March 2024. Well, it's been a minute. There's a lot of stuff that's been added since then, but as always, I want to thank you guys so much for the, holy cow, 80 trillion views. You guys are too kind, and of course the generosity you guys have leaving that like as well. I'm glad you're finding this helpful. I have a link down below to the Ultimate Galaxy Heroes resource guide that I've created here. It's one of the biggest secrets of Galaxy Heroes because you can't really Google it. I gotta turn this into a website or something. That's a whole other problem for a whole other day. In case you don't know what this website is, or spreadsheet to be more specific, it's the website where we have all of our teams ranked 5v5, 3v5. We're gonna see some updates to 5v5 soon. Oddly enough, not too many teams have been added since the last time we made it, but a lot of Zetas are added. We're going to also be updating Omicron soon. We also, if you want to engage with the scary D word, Datacrons, I have my Datacrons ranking for every single season, what you should be shooting for. And on top of that, for a lot of the factions out there, we have Omicron, Zeta parties, as well as modding parties as well, for a lot of the newer stuff that's coming to the game. And I want to kind of start off with our conversation here, because as I was updating this spreadsheet, all the Zetas, moving things around, one thing that I'm noticing, I mean, it's not a new revelation. We know that this game has been moving farther and farther away from individual character power, even though I kind of preferred it when it was that way, way back when it was all about the best characters and whatnot. Now it's more team composition, pros and cons. So also one of the biggest cons is theory crafting is kind of going out the window when you focus more on the team rather than individual characters. Again, you guys can go on about what you guys feel about it. One thing I'm noticing is it feels like the power of Zetas is incrementally getting weaker over time. It's starting to feel like Omegas. Remember when Omegas first came out? Mind-blowing. But now we don't really look at Omegas as that crazy of a power difference. A lot of power seems to be very loaded into Omicrons now. I'm going to go over some examples here, but to be fair, there are some characters that are amazing without Zetas that were added to this list here. So let's go over. I think I want to add one more thing. If you guys can, let me know down below. I mean, with what I presented here, where I feel like it's getting kind of hard to rank Zetas, all of them in totality amongst each other. I mean, here's the number, assuming Gary did everything right here, 371 Zetas in game. Let's just say more or less, because knowing him, there's a duplicate in here, or maybe I'm missing one or two things here. It's kind of getting hard to really rank Zetas individually, because some Zetas rely on the team. Some Zetas require an Omicron to really see the full power. Some Zetas are amazing on their own, like Wat Tambor. It's really kind of hard because it's a lot of apples to bananas to oranges to peaches and pecans and, corn at that point. So I'm wondering if you guys would maybe much prefer kind of moving forward. We're doing less, individual character rankings. We're focusing more on squad rankings, but maybe you guys just want maybe this moving forward. I could try to do both. It's just one of those things where I feel like Zeta rankings are becoming a lot more difficult to appreciate because there's a lot of nuance to it. From how do you compare them, and then does it require other Zetas to really enable the full power? Hopefully that makes sense. Anyways, with all that said and done, let's talk about the new changes. Turn on correct browsing. I don't know what that is. No, turn that off. Anyways, here's what we have new for the 2024 December Zeta list. First and foremost, the biggest change, adding a new tier to the Zetas, where now we have a Bestcar tier right under Kyber, and I'm going to update that so it's reflective in the other guides that we have over here. I haven't even updated my character spreadsheet. Again, it's just, man, I miss the days when individual character power was the focal point of this game. Anyways, I'm getting off track here. But generally what we've been doing, we created a new tier, especially up here. We have this Bestcar tier that kind of separate things a bit more because there's a lot more stuff out there. And oftentimes, our Zetas kind of get mixed up with a lot of galactic legends. It's really kind of hard to appreciate things, and it allows me to kind of bring some Zetas up a bit more now that we kind of separate some GL level stuff from each other. So that's the biggest change that we have to this Bestcar tier, and it's more or less kind of a new spreadsheet, kind of moving things around. let's start off with the Kyber tier. Talk about what's new since we made this video in March. Even though many months have passed, you know, there's been a couple things. Let's just say, maybe some Jar Jar and Gungans, maybe some mercenaries, you know, the Enoch Imperial Remnant crew, Queen Amidala, Luthen, Ezra Bridger Exile. So let's start off with the Kyber stuff, and we're gonna kind of work our way along. In Kyber, the newest thing, as you're gonna see, it's primarily gonna be entailing a lot of the Galactic Legends Zetas, which again, that's why I wanted to create like a new tier so we can appreciate the non-Galactic Legends Zetas a bit more. However, there are some non-Galactic Legends that have made its way inside the Kyber tier, like a lot of the Third Sister, Malicos, Wat Tambor, I still think is the best plug-and-play Zeta that works in so many different lineups. Bo-Katan, Mandalore, Seer, Junda, Darth Bane, of course, even Malgus. It's still kind of early, so you know what? Preliminary, but I'm feeling like baylan Skoll is gonna be an offensive powerhouse, you know, Galactic Legend counter. It's early, there's datacrons that might be skewing things. We've only had a 3v3 season. We are about to start a 5v5, so things might be changing, but we have it's all inevitable and power, such as you've never dreamed. And with those two Zetas, when we come to power such as never dreamed, here's one thing I'm saying here. Look at this, the Zeta right here, it stuns all enemies. I mean, shoot. We have less than some Zetas, the non-Zeta teams that can just stun everyone. You know, it's kind of crazy. You know, Palpatine can stun everyone, Jedi Luke can stun everyone. It's just, it feels like the power of Zetas is getting diminished over time. I have some other examples out there, but baylan Skoll being able to stun all enemies and being able to feed Terminate if they resist, kind of a big deal. Furthermore, it's all inevitable. The other Zeta that seems really good for him. At the start of the battle, all mercenary allies are going to double their stacks of Soldier Forge, which is going to trigger a variety of additional effects. We don't need to go into the full entire kit for baylan Skoll. It's a lot that we have going on, but nonetheless, being able to get all this fancy stuff with Soldier Forge is really going to move the mercenaries along. But as I said, I'm wondering if maybe it just might be best moving forward to kind of just go over individual, you know, factions that we have, you know. So for example, the mercenaries, I show you the Omicron parties. I know we're focusing more on Zetas, but speaking of Zetas, you can see some of the Zetas that we already have ranked here, and then it shows you the priority levels, and of course modding as well to kind of give you a more well-rounded approach there. Because when we're looking at Galaxiers, it's not so much individual characters and their individual Zetas, it's more team building as well as composition. Anyways, let's keep moving on, going back over to our Zeta spreadsheet here. Those are pretty much the only things I've added inside the Kyber tier. That is new with the new stuff that's come along. But now we have other stuff, you know, baylan Skoll, Mastered Apprentice here. They're all great Zetas. We're kind of splitting hairs on which one would go first, but with Mastered Apprentice, this is going to allow you to get additional effects whenever you're hitting those 45 stacks, the 50 stacks, the 55 stacks. But of course, it gets even better if you have the Omicron on them. So being able to have that leadership ability, multiply your Soldier Forge stacks, is going to get baylan Skoll moving along quite quickly. Now, in this Bestcar tier, it's primarily encapsulating, again, it's really hard to kind of differentiate the Zetas amongst everyone because, again, it's taking into effect, it's kind of you know, implicit. We're looking at, you know, what did they do for the team? We're kind of looking at these things that they're not quite Galactic Legends, but they're really defining that next layer under Galactic Legends. A lot of legendary conquest level power, epic confrontation stuff that we're going to be finding baked in there, and other very good non-legendary teams that we have. One of them being Boss Nass and the Gungans. Yeah, we have some Gungan stuff that we got to discuss. Boss Nass, again, if you go down here, check out my tabs that I created. We have a Gungan tab here, which again goes over Omicron priority, top Zeta priorities, as well as the modding recommendations that we have listed for the Gungans as well. But the boss of Otogunga, if you want to just get this team up and running, you kind of need this. The boss of Otogunga Zeta basically enables them to start getting some really crazy stuff cooking here. This basically creates the identity more or less for the Gungans. Yeah, so yeah, you're gonna want to get that locked in. Again, there's a lot of words in here. I don't want to turn this video into a giant kit reveal because boy, there's been a lot of words that we've read this year when it's come to our kit reveal. So Boss of Otogunga, that's the Zeta you're gonna want to start getting this team up and running. Moving down, we have Enoch and the Imperial Remnants. Fun fact, I actually just applied some of the Enoch Zetas because I've been really liking the Imperial Remnant team, and I've been using them a ton inside of Conquest. The Remnant team, it's been quite an interesting one. Being able to counter, for example, Jabba the Hutt's been kind of sweet. For example, even without the datacron, they're looking to be pretty solid. But at the end of the day, with Enoch, you're going to want to have, at the very minimum, I think Ominous Sentinel is probably one of those great plug-and-play Zetas because the main thing is, it's kind of a passive way. You plug him in any lineup, he's going to be able to reduce the enemy's critical chance by 350%. That can work, of course, in Imperial Remnant lines, but you could throw it in a variety of other teams. Being able to pretty much almost stop critical hits, kind of a big deal. But of course, there are other things with Imperial Remnants that he's going to feed into. So it's kind of one of those Zetas. He's got a great lead, as we're going to discuss. We have his leadership ability down in the Arbiter of Decay in the Aurodium section. But I think that Omnis Sentinel, really good Zeta. Ezra Bridger Exile, new, latest conquest unit in the game. We have Exile and the Force is my ally. As the two new Zetas, we haven't even seen the full power of Ezra. I want to make that incredibly clear. We're waiting for Galactic Legend of Ahsoka Tano sometime later on this month, and he's only going to get better. But boy, I'm a fan of him now. Doing great stuff with Jedi, doing great stuff with Galactic Legend Rey. Check it out. Exile, this is gonna be great because it's gonna allow your Spectres to have instant feed immunity. Not able to appreciate that too much yet, but we're gonna appreciate it more once we get Galactic Legend of Ahsoka Tano. But when Ezra has Exile, which is at the very beginning, he's gonna prevent assists, attacks out of turns. Ooh, that's kind of a big deal. And when Ezra loses Exile for the first time, when he performs an ability, he's gonna call someone to assist. But furthermore, the Force is my ally is going to allow him to pass the Exile over to the enemy. The next time Ezra damages with an ability is that, well, Jesus, when the next enemy Ezra damages with an ability is Exile for the rest of it. So he's able to pass it over. So basically, in Isolate, that's kind of another thing. You know, it's kind of like I feel like we're getting a Zeta that basically does more or less what Isolate does. Or check this out. This is not in this Bestcar tier. We have the Daring Advance a little bit lower. Seems kind of like a weak Zeta, right? If Ezra scores 3 criticals, the target enemy is stunned for 1 turn, which can't be copied, dispelled, or resisted. Seems a little weak for a Zeta. I don't know how to quantify that. I feel like the quality and power of Zetas is diminishing over time. Again, it's a suspicion, take it as you will. That's not the main focal point. I'm going to talk about Great Mothers next. New to this list, and I'm going to tell you straight up. Yes, we have Great Mothers Energy Threat in the Bestcar tier. Man, the Great Mothers, they're one of the lower. This is kind of like the inverse of what I'm saying. So maybe I'm arguing it against myself here a little bit. I feel like the Great Mothers is one of the least Zeta intensive. Like you might be able to pass along without even needing the Zeta on them. Zeta intensive team we have in this game, even without Omicrons, they're pretty banger. But energy threads, if you were going to invest in the Great Mothers, well, you're probably going to want to have this basic ability here because energy threads allows you to reduce the enemy's max health by 20%. Big deal up against like Bane, for example. Big deal up against Darth Malgus and a variety of other folks out there. Yeah. Kind of great, right? We got some other things that we're going to talk about with them later on, but let's keep moving on. Jar Jar Binks, our only legendary that we've gotten this year. Yeah, Baylan Skoll's legendary, but a true legendary, not epic confrontation, of course. Jar Jar Binks, we got a couple of Zetas that we got to talk about. The support character through and through, this guy, where we have up in this category, Muy Muy I Love You inside of the Bestcar tier. And again, we already showed you the Gungan spreadsheet that we have here, but Muy Muy I Love You, being able to let you, at the start of the battle, inflict everyone a frustration. Big debuff. At the very beginning, basically making it very difficult for any teams to try to open swarm you, turn me to roll you. It's a more powerful version of confusion. So that's kind of the bare minimum. You're going to want to start with Jar Jar Binks. We'll talk more about Jar Jar later on. We have Master Qui-Gon. So Roman inside of this tier of Bestcar. When we take a look at Master Qui-Gon, stay close to me. It's what's that song? Don't stand so close to me. It's the opposite. He wants you to stay close to him. With Qui-Gon's Zeta ability here. First off, when you're stunned, you're immune to terminator reduction. Nice. Great. Anytime a Galactic Republic ally falls below 50% health, if the ally on the leader side is Galactic Republic, they're going to be taking a bonus turn, dispelling all the debuffs on the leader. Of course, great in Queen Amidala, but great in other Galactic Republic lineups as well. It's a bonus turn, not terminator. Two very different things. And he's able to give 25% max health to the rest of the Galactic Republic allies. Furthermore, then you get the Queen Amidala bonuses. So even without Queen Amidala, this is a really solid Zeta, not even Omicron, to use in your Qui-Gon Jinn, Kylo Beck lineups. Maybe you can make it work in Master Kenobi if you really wanted to go that far. Nice plug and play viability for the crew out there. And then we have Padawan Obi-Wan, Nobility and Restraint, and then some Queen Amidala stuff. Taking a look at Padawan Obi-Wan, Nobility and Restraint. This Zeta right here is where a lot of the damage is cooking in the kitchen. For each stack of all those juicy heal over time, boom, we're getting 5% critical chance. Each stack of protection over time, boom, 5% critical damage. This is really where the power scales up on the Queen Amidala lineup. Yes, you're gonna wanna have that. And then we have Queen Amidala herself. Absolute fan of this conquest. She had nothing but good words to say about the Queener. Here we have Loyal Bodyguard, as well as My Place is with My People. If you take a look at what we have with that leadership ability, My Place is with My People here. This allows us to ramp down the opposing team's critical damage, defense, and offense by a cap of 50%. Chopping someone's offense by 50%, kind of a big deal. And then furthermore, we have Loyal Bodyguard down here, where this allows the handmaiden decoy to get really more involved inside him. She looks like she's not doing anything, but I promise you, she's getting stuff done over on this. Man, oh man, yeah. Whew. I love the Queen Amidala team. Such a lot of fun. Tons and tons of fun. But now we move down to the Aurodium status. And I actually just kind of noticed this. Kind of inadvertently, this kind of turned almost into like a bell graph. You see, like, it peaks at where Aurodium is where most of the Zetas I felt like lied in. Yeah, and it kind of, goes up and then it kind of goes down from there. Funny how that works, right? Funny how that works. Aurodium. Not quite Kyber or Bestcar, of course, but still, nonetheless, these are great supplemental Zetas. Or some of these might be good leads that maybe just aren't quite the level of Bestcar tier. I'm kind of creating, my own level of definitions when it comes to separating all these different tiers. Here's where we're going to have Boss Nest. Oh, of course. See, this is where Gary screwed. I told you there was going to be duplicate. Gary, delete it right now. Yeah, so I told you there's going to be a duplicate somewhere in here. Get rid of that right now. So yeah, Gary, get out of here. No one likes you. Okay, I know some people do. Anyways, take out that Boss Nest one. Here's where we're going to have the other Gungans. Captain Tarples on our list here. With Captain Tarples, there's a lot of other great Zetas that are associated with the Gungans, where here, it allows him, when he attacks on turn, he's going to deal true damage equal to 5% of his max protection. And then we have all this, things that are going to make our protection pretty beefy in a Gungan lineup. Kind of a big deal. And he's able to ignore taunt and inflict buff immunity whenever he attacks out of turn. Yeah, it's kind of nice. But again, there are other more important Zetas that we have. Arbiter Decay, the lead on Enoch. I'm a fan of it. I applied both of the Zetas in my free-to-play account. I'm using him all the time. Maybe that's the reason why I'm doing it. But it's a really fun team. Maybe not the best team that came out this year, but man, it's a team if you're looking to have fun. Their forces do a lot of Imperial Remnant stuff. The Arbiter Decay lead here, man, it's just I've rarely had a bad time when I use these guys. Allows to get more speed, more ways to avoid critical damage with critical voids, extra tenacity, 150% max health, which is kind of a nice deal that they're giving us here. Really leading into the decay debuff that just turns us into a zombie army. It's such a fun team. It really is here. Then we have Great Mothers. And again, this is one of those things where I kind of feel like, it seems kind of like a weak Zeta. It's basically a Zeta that is an AoE buff dispel. Imagine, remember, how many characters we have with AoE buff dispels that don't really need any Zetas? I mean, it just seems like, again, Great Mothers are great as the name would suggest, but it's just like I'm going through all these Zetas like, man, I feel like, some of these Zetas, not all that special, but sometimes it's a good thing. If the Zetas aren't great, but the team is great, that means less Zetas. You got to invest. But nonetheless, if you're going in on the Great Mothers, it's only the Great Mothers, in my opinion, are a 2 Zeta team. Maybe one on Great Mothers, one on Morgan Elsbeth. We're going to talk about such a great team. Maybe it's a good thing that sometimes these Zetas don't seem all that special. Gungan Boomadir, Gungan Phalanx are going to be the other ones that are going to be pretty good quality. Maybe not as important as the Boss of Tugunga or some of the Jar Jar ones, but still nonetheless important baseline Zetas that you're going to want to have. For example, being able to prevent revives of Gungan Boomadir, Gungan Phalanx, more ways to get taunts up and running. Very important. But again, maybe not quite Bestcar tier. Then we have the other Jar Jar Zetas that we have are Misa Okide as well as Misa Warriors. With this one, Misa Okide, it's going to allow us to get the death marks of Jar Jar, more or less taunts at the very beginning, crazy amounts of evasion, and chances to take bonus turns whenever enemies or any character, mind you, is gaining bonus turn meter. And then furthermore, we have Misa Warriors allowing you to take the debuffs on the enemy and lock them in. Very nice. So reapplies them, locks them in so they can't cleanse it, and get it out of the way. Moving forward, Luthen Rail. I kind of go back and forth with my arguing I have with myself. When we take a look at Luthen Rail, he's a 1 Zeta character. That's it. And the Zeta's fine. It's not a God tier Zeta, but the character is God tier. Big fan of Luthen Rail. Yeah, the Zeta allows you to, for example, get the mark on Blazkowicz, as I like to call him, the Rebel Trooper that he spawns out there, or you can get the rally on the Mon Moth, the Rebel Fires. Again, solid Zeta. Maybe not all that important in the grand scheme of the team, but with pretty much no Zetas and no Omicrons, Mon Mothma is able to beat a variety of galactic legends with Luthen. So again, saying that the power of Zetas I feel like is being diminished is maybe true, but that there's good and bad things to kind of pull from it. That means maybe some teams don't need Zetas, but some teams are going to just need the Omicrons, which is a lot more expensive than Zeta investments. Then we have Barak, one of the cornerstones to baylan skoll that we have. Spoiler, Shin's also going to be in this Aurodium tier. More important Zetas to have on the baylan skoll team, but if you're already going to the max, you might as well slap on these Zetas. This support allows them to get more purge on the enemy, but way more important, whenever Marok attacks at a turn, he is going to be reduced to offensive target enemy by 20% until the end of their next turns. If you call him a ton, if he just assists well, it's like 5 times, their offense is basically gone, more or less. And then you get a variety of other things depending on the stacks of soldier fortune that he has. Very good stuff that we have. Moving along with him, Morgan Elsbeth, another solid member to that beautiful Great Mother crew, where preordained destiny is giving us the opportunity for when she taunts, Night Sister allies are going to get 20% health and protection and 15% until she loses the taunt. And then whenever she loses, she recovers 5% health protection and gains 10% to try to get her that next turn to get that taunt up and running. Yeah, still, I kind of feel like the Great Mothers, man, their team doesn't need Zetas to move along. But man, they have Omicrons. That's a whole different story for territory wars and whatnot. But man, I might be biased because I got a 330 shard pull on Great Mothers, but boy, that's the one to get the 330 shard pull. We have Shin Hati on our list here, where basically the Zeta that she's getting right here, she's gonna have the granted ability Clean Escape, allowing her to get all these additional effects based on the Soldier of Fortune that she has. You know, getting the debuffs cleansed, getting the max health on herself, getting everyone to go under stealth, which is actually a pretty big deal. Basically making baylan skoll taunt, even though he might not be taunting. He's going to be taunting more or less the entire time he's going to be there, and a variety of other great effects. Again, a lot of the Moroccan Shin stuff doesn't really need Zetas, but it's kind of nice cherry on top stuff that you don't want to skip out. You want to really take your baylan skoll to the max. And then we have a few Chromium Zetas that we have, which if Aurodiums are the cherry on top that just gives it that little bit of edge, I guess Chromium's the sprinkles on top. Does that make sense? We're looking at this like a sundae, right? It's a chocolate sundae. Here we have a few things. We have Boss Nass's Ankura Resilience. You know, it's again one of those Zetas where you have some other more important Zetas for the Gungans, I think, but nonetheless, Ankura Resilience is giving us some really good stuff that we have cooking in the kitchen. Gary, how much you want to bet? I almost believe you probably made this a duplicate somewhere. Let's see it. I'm gonna test Gary. Did you? I feel like Ankura. No, look at this. You actually only put it in one spot. I'm actually kind of proud of you. Yeah, I have to check your work sometimes. But I caught you here. Yeah, we moved. I'll cut you some slack. We moved a lot of Gungans around. All right, fine. Take out that one. Okay, I had a feeling I had some duplicates somewhere. So what is that? 369 that we're at? Of Zetas? Oh! Anyways, I'm getting distracted. And Core Resilience, another great Zeta to have. But I think, you know, you want to have the Boomadir. You're going to want to have the Captain Tarpals up and running before you maybe get that sprinkle on top with the Ankura Resilience. Detra Peridia, just a little nibble. This is, you know, even though it's maybe not a top tier Zeta required for the Imperial, in the totality of the game, when I look at the Imperial Remnants, boy, it's such a fun Zeta. This Zeta allows him to remove Turn Meter, which is important. When enemies have Blight, they're gonna get some pretty, it's basically like, you know, bonus true damage, right? And oftentimes, if there's a ton of Blight on the enemy, this can oftentimes, more or less, I don't want to say insta-kill, but in the right scenario, could look like an insta-kill. Kind of a big deal. And he has a chance to instantly defeat him when they reach a certain threshold. But furthermore, he takes a bonus turn if he defeats the enemy, and he resets the cooldown of this. So hypothetically, I've had this happen a few times. He nibbles. He can eat apart a whole team. Really fun, but again, if you're building an Imperial Remnant squad in the totality of the game, it kind of gets lost in the weeds. But if you go to the Imperial Remnant section that we have, you can see it's kind of an important Zeta. You know, again, that's the thing. It might, when you look at this spreadsheet, it's like, oh, it's not that important in the grand scheme of the game. But when you kind of focus just on the Imperial Remnants themselves, you know, it's kind of an important one to add for the priority list, right? Well, don't worry, we have to talk about the Night Trooper. Don't get me wrong, Night Trooper is important for this list, but you know, there are more important Zetas again for Detra Peridia, as well as Enoch, the March of the Undying, basically allowing you to stun someone, moving a little bit of Turn Meter again. Losing Turn Meter when the enemies have Blight is a good thing to have. Furthermore, we have the inevitable end on top of that, where Night Trooper is going to get the additional critical damage, defense penetration per stack of Blight on them. Then when they reach 5 stacks of Blight, they gain Frenzy. It's all right. It's really the Omicrons that really start making things a lot more interesting inside of that grand arena hemisphere. Am I missing anything else, Gary? Let's go take a look real quick. Yeah, let's see. Zeta's ranked here. Are we missing anything else in this Chromium tier? Night Trooper people. That's more or less your updated December 2024. All Zetas ranked from best to worst. It's a longer video than some of the other ones. Well, it's been 6, 7, 8 months or more since the last time we updated this. For some reason, I stayed on top of my Omicron and team ranking, but whatever reason, Zeta's kind of slipped under the radar. Nonetheless, people, I hope this, again, not just this, but the rest of the spreadsheet's helpful. I'm going to continue building out the rest of these sub factions here because I feel like this is more helpful and applicable. If you're getting the Galaxy Heroes, it's not so much the grand scheme of where Zetas are. Although, I guess this is helpful if you're like, you look and it's like, oh, I maybe want to look into this degree of the game. Like, hey, you know what? Maybe you don't have any of, I don't know, the Sith Empire stuff. And you're like, all right, okay. It's a good starting point, but I think really want to kind of fine tune the information for factions. Again, pros and cons of it, but this game moved away from individual character power, and it's moving, well, it's already moved. It's not a new thing. It's all about team power at this point. But speaking of team power, you're my favorite team out there. Thank you for stopping by. If you made it this far, wow, you are a trooper. Hopefully not an Imperial remnant trooper. They don't treat those right. Yeah, even when you're dead, they basically said what is dead may never die. Yeah, they took that a little too literally. Anyways, leave that like, comment down below, subscribe so you're not missing a thing. And the most important thing is, always remember, it's great to be in the Empire today.
Oh, it's great to be in the Empire.